So I want you to imagine being trapped inside, like a really small enclosed dirt pen.
Okay. Sounds claustrophobic already.
Right. And you're backed up against this heavy wooden gate, and suddenly a herd of 1,000-pound horses just charges directly at you.
Which is terrifying, just on a purely physical level.
Oh, completely. But here's the thing. They aren't trying to run past you to get to an open gate. Their ears are pinned flat against their skulls.
Oh, wow. That's a really bad sign.
Yeah, their massive necks are leveled parallel to the ground, and they're actively baring their teeth, snapping their jaws, and literally spitting saliva into the air.
That is such an incredibly visceral, almost unnatural image.
Right, because they're acting entirely like a pack of marauding wolves just cornering a meal.
And we are socially conditioned to think of horses as these majestic, flight-driven animals, you know?
Right, like creatures that'll spook at a plastic bag blowing in the wind.
Exactly. But in this specific scenario, they've completely inverted their biological nature. They have literally become the apex predators in the pen.
And that terrifying moment, it isn't pulled from some fiction thriller. It's the real, lived reality at the center of today's deep dive.
Yeah, we're looking at the memoir Half Broke by Ginger Gaffney.
And the cover of this memoir really sets the tone perfectly. It's the stark, super evocative image of a horse's face just emerging from complete darkness.
It's beautiful but unsettling. It perfectly symbolizes the hidden, raw, and honestly highly dangerous nature of the story we're about to explore.
Because the setting of this story is just as startling as the behavior of those charging horses.
Oh, absolutely. We're looking at a 17-acre prison ranch in northern New Mexico.
Right along the Rio Grande.
Yeah, and it's entirely contained by 12-foot-high adobe walls. But here's the catch.
There are no guards.
None. There are no hired doctors, no traditional therapists, no wardens walking the yard with a baton.
Which is wild. The residents are all felons and, severe addicts, and they run the entire operation themselves.
The older residents teach the newer ones everything. I mean, plumbing, cooking, basic maintenance.
But there is one major problem that they just cannot solve. The ranch has a herd of horses that has gone completely feral.
Because the residents had absolutely no idea how to care for them.
Right. The horses had been surviving by basically eating Wonder Bread and tasty cakes out of the facility dumpsters.
Which is just awful for their biology. But worse, they had actually started hunting the humans.
Yeah, actively attacking the residents, biting them, and just trampling them into the dirt.
So our mission today is to explore this profound, often highly volatile intersection of broken humans and broken animals.
We're going to look at how a 120-pound horse trainer named Ginger was brought into this absolute chaos.
To save not just this feral herd, but the profoundly damaged humans who are supposed to be caring for them.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because the very first question that comes to my mind is the why.
Why are they acting this way?
Exactly. Why are these magnificent prey animals acting like a gang of street enforcers? Because you mentioned earlier that horses rely on flight, not fight.
Right. I mean, for thousands of years, a horse's primary survival instinct has been to flee danger. Their bodies are literally built for sudden, explosive speed.
But think about the physical environment of this specific ranch.
Yes, the 12-foot adobe walls.
You have these massive prey animals trapped behind solid walls. Flight is quite literally not a physical option.
And when you remove a prey animal's ability to flee, the biological instinct flips. The nervous system decides, well, I have to fight to survive.
But what's truly fascinating here is what they're fighting against.
They're responding to a phenomenon called emotional camouflage.
So think about how a dog might absorb the stress of a really tense household.
Like if a family is constantly yelling.
Right. The dog might start cowering in the corner or, snapping at guests. But here, we aren't talking about a 60-pound golden retriever.
No, you're talking about a 1,000-pound prey animal.
A 1,000-pound animal absorbing the suppressed rage, the trauma, and the hypervigilance of a literal prison yard.
It takes that mirroring effect and turns it into a lethal survival mechanism.
Because horses survive in the wild by constantly reading their environment for risk. Right?
Exactly. They are masters at reading microlanguage. And the residents of this ranch walk around wearing what we could call prison armor.
Yeah, they have hunched shoulders, aggressive, pounding strides.
Or conversely, completely defeated, sunken postures that just scream vulnerability.
And the horses read this continuous physical broadcast of pain, anger, and fear.
And because they can't escape it, they respond with preemptive, defensive aggression.
Take Hawk, for example. He's the marauding leader of this feral herd.
Oh, Hawk is terrifying.
He literally trampled a resident named Paul. And Paul is a massive guy from a family with a long history of incarceration. He actually has a back-off tattoo inked prominently on his neck.
And Hawk just knocked this hardened guy right into the dirt.
And then just went back to casually eating hay.
Unbelievable.
So when Ginger first tries to work with Hawk in the round pen, he charges her. He's spitting, swinging his head like a lion, just trying to intimidate her out of his space.
And Ginger realizes in that terrifying split-second moment that she cannot take a single step backward.
Not even one.
Right. If she retreats, she validates Hawk's deeply ingrained belief that humans are a threat to be dominated.
So she has to stand her absolute ground, and she's armed with nothing but a flimsy bamboo cane.
She has to physically meet his aggression until his nervous system realizes she isn't a victim to be bullied. She's a stable leader.
She has to establish an unshakable boundary.
But recognizing that the horses are mirroring human trauma is really only half the battle.
Yeah, how do you actually walk into a pen with a 1,000-pound animal that wants to kill you and convince it to stop?
Well, you have to force an interaction that breaks their feral dynamic.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what happens with the sister mares, Luna and Estrella.
Oh, man. These two mares were dumped at the ranch 2 years prior by a breeder who didn't even bother to give them names.
They hadn't been touched by a human hand in all that time.
Yeah.
They were completely feral and deeply codependent.
And Luna has this horrific injury.
It's so tough to read about.
A resident, who happened to be a former drug smuggler, tried to catch her by basically throwing a stiff rope at her face while she was backed into a small, corrugated metal shelter.
She panicked, naturally.
Yeah, she reared up and smashed her skull violently against a wooden beam. She has a 5-inch zigzag gash across her face, literally exposing the white bone of her skull.
And her eye is massively infected, just dripping with yellow pus.
It's brutal. If left untreated, she will lose the eye, and the infection will likely travel to her brain and kill her.
But you can't just walk up to a wild, traumatized animal and hand them oral antibiotics.
No, they have to physically catch her. So to do that, Ginger enlists the help of the two women who run the livestock division.
Right, Flora and Sarah.
Yeah, Flora is a former heroin addict who struggles deeply with compulsive lying, and Sarah is a former prostitute who carries a profound, twisting physical limp from a brutal past assault.
So Ginger baits the two starving sisters into the round pen with a pile of fresh alfalfa.
And then she has Flora and Sarah do something that just seems completely crazy.
She has them form a human wall.
Yeah, they link up, spreading their arms and legs wide, and start sliding back and forth across the pen in unison.
They're yelling, stomping the dirt, trying to physically separate the two codependent horses.
But wait, spreading their arms and yelling, doesn't that just prove to the horses that humans are the aggressive monsters they fear? Like, why act like a predator to a terrified prey animal?
Well, see, it looks like predator behavior to us, but that is a human projection. Prey animals understand the world through spatial pressure and resource control.
Okay, so it's about space.
Exactly. By claiming the center of the pen and moving in strict unison, Flora, Sarah, and Ginger aren't acting like a pack of wolves. They are speaking the biological language of a lead mare.
Ah, I see. Because in a wild herd, a lead mare moves other horses simply by claiming space.
Exactly right. By forming that human wall, the women are demanding respect through sheer physical presence.
They're short-circuiting the horses' feral predator logic and forcing them to revert to herd followers.
And it is intense. The chaos triggers Sarah so badly, she almost breaks down and quits right there in the desk.
But they hold the line, and Estrella eventually submits.
Her wildness just sort of melts away as she realizes she doesn't have to be in charge anymore.
And amazingly, when Sarah gently walks Estrella out of the pen on a lead rope, Sarah's severe limp, that twisted, painful posture she's carried for years, it magically disappears. She walks completely straight.
It's an incredible moment of physical congruence. Luna, however, refuses to give up.
Yeah, Ginger actually has to lasso her, fighting her physical strength for 30 exhausting minutes just to get a hose on her face to wash out the dead tissue and exposed bone.
But once that physical boundary is established and the horses finally realize they're safe within a structured herd, the entire dynamic of the ranch shifts.
You move from physical containment to the delicate nuances of physical dialogue.
The Ginger now has to teach these inmates how to actually speak to the horses using their own bodies.
Which brings us to the infamous walking lesson.
Yes, the walking lesson.
Ginger lines up these hardened felons guys with heavy rap sheets, gang tattoos, decades of street survival, and makes them practice simply walking down a dirt road.
It sounds absolutely ridiculous to them, but the stakes are incredibly high. It is the vocabulary of posture.
And we see this vividly with a resident named Randy.
Randy is a massive, incredibly angry resident. He was sent to the ranch by his wife because his rage issues were destroying their family.
And he aggressively stomps down the dirt road, his chest puffed out, yelling loudly about how he knows all about horses from his time at a racing track in Florida.
He is completely faking his confidence.
And Ginger immediately calls his bluff. She just tells him to go over and untie one of the horses from the fence.
Suddenly, all that fake, puffed-up bravado vanishes. He starts physically shaking.
He can barely squeeze his body between the horse trailers because his internal paralyzing fear completely contradicts his external tough guy act.
And the horse feels that disconnect instantly.
I think about this like actors learning a character's physical tell for a movie role, you know?
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Like, you learn how a character walks, how they hold their shoulders, how they breathe. But if an actor fakes it on screen, the worst that happens is they get a bad review in a magazine.
Right, but if Randy fakes his calm, a 1,000-pound horse is going to run him over.
Exactly.
What is paramount here is the necessity of absolute honesty.
Yeah.
A horse does not care about your rap sheet. They do not care about your tough guy facade, your defensive sarcasm, or how many fights you've won.
They only care about congruence.
Does your internal emotional state match your external physical movement? If it doesn't, you are unpredictable. And to a horse, unpredictable means dangerous.
Then you have Paul, the guy with the neck tattoo who got trampled by Hawk.
Right, his transformation is wild.
He learns to take the lead rope and ask the horse to walk forward as gently as if he were asking someone to dance. He actually stops, takes a deep breath, and reflects on his own internal state before he asks the horse to move a single inch.
This simple act forces the inmates, perhaps for the very first time in their entire lives, to be entirely physically and emotionally honest.
Because they cannot lie to the horses.
No, the horses always know. And once they achieve that emotional honesty, it triggers some incredibly profound breakthroughs.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at Willie.
Oh, sweet Willie.
Willie is a 28-year-old ancient black Arabian horse. And one day, he wanders into an old, flooded septic field on the edge of the property to eat some green grass.
And he gets stuck up to his belly in literal human waste.
It is an absolute disaster. The sludge is so thick and deep that Ginger has to bring in a heavy tractor to dig a trench through the sewage just to get him out.
And standing right there in the muck with Willie is Tony.
Now, Tony is this abrasive, deeply sarcastic former meth addict. He's the guy who constantly mocks the therapy, rolls his eyes at Ginger, acts like he's the smartest guy in the room.
But when Willie is sinking in the septic field, Tony loses a boot in the sludge.
He stands waist deep in the raw filth and just patiently, quietly rubs Willie's mane for hours while the tractor slowly digs them out.
And the real breakthrough happens afterward.
Yeah.
They wash the muck off the horse, and Tony turns to Ginger and offers a completely unprompted, genuine apology.
Not just for being difficult during the lessons.
No, he admits that he is 45 years old and is just now learning how to care about someone other than himself.
He says Willie trusting him in that muck felt good because no one has ever trusted him.
Then, he drops his armor entirely and admits he never earned anyone's trust anyway.
It is a staggering moment of self-awareness. And then we have Randy's journey with Moo.
Randy desperately wants to ride Moo, who is Ginger's calmest, most reliable horse.
But Randy knows he's too heavy, so he goes on a strict vegetarian diet to lose weight so he won't hurt the horse's back.
He spends hours in the wood shop building his own custom wooden mounting block.
And he finally gets all the way to the block, steps up, puts his boot in the stirrup, and breaks down into visceral, uncontrollable sobs. He just collapses into the dirt.
It's described in the book as a subterranean wail. All of his childhood trauma, his father's violent beatings, his mother's tragic overdose, and all comes pouring out at the side of this gentle horse.
And the other residents, who are strictly forbidden from touching each other by ranch rules to prevent fighting, break the rules. They form a giant protective group hug around him right there in the dust. I mean, these are guys who survived solitary confinement. They survived violent street gangs, shootouts, and terrible domestic abuse. Why does standing next to a horse break them down into sobbing tears when a prison cell couldn't?
It comes down to the absence of human assessment.
Human assessment?
Yeah. These individuals have spent their entire lives being judged by the legal system, by society, by their families, and by each other. They're constantly assessed as either threats to be neutralized or failures to be discarded.
Right.
A horse provides a space completely devoid of human judgment. When a powerful animal like Moo just stands there quietly, waiting for Randy, not judging his weight, his violent past, or his fear, it shatters Randy's defensive shell.
The armor simply isn't needed anymore.
Exactly. When you finally drop armor you've carried for decades, the unprocessed grief underneath finally has room to pour out.
It's a beautiful image, but, this isn't a movie. This is addiction. And healing from addiction isn't a neat circle. We have to look at the stark, relentless reality of the environment they're in.
The concept of the Ellis Island bench perfectly illustrates this brutal reality.
Bench?
Yes, the ranch. If you break the rules, you are placed on a hard wooden bench in the main dining hall. You have to sit there in complete silence, sometimes for days on end, while everyone else eats around you.
No one is allowed to speak to you or acknowledge you. It's a psychological pressure cooker, basically a prelude to being kicked out and sent back to state prison.
And Sarah ends up on this bench.
Sarah, the same woman who had that beautiful moment walking Estrella where her limp disappeared.
She is caught in the hay barn with a male resident, which is a massive rule violation.
So she's put on a severe solitary contract. 16-hour days of hard physical labor, completely isolated, only allowed to speak to one peer mentor.
The psychological pressure of that isolation breaks her. On her very first day back with the horses after months of this punishment, she gets on a horse named Scout and just takes off in a reckless, dissociative gallop right toward a dangerous pile of lumber and wire.
Ginger has to race on horseback to physically cut her off before she kills herself.
And when Ginger stops her, Sarah's eyes are completely blank. She says, "Taking my clothes off for men is all I've ever done."
We learned she had been brutally beaten by women in prison and left for dead. The isolation and punishment at the ranch triggered all that old, unresolved trauma.
It's a heartbreaking regression, and it's compounded by what Tony and Randy find shortly after in the hay barn.
Yeah, while they're clearing out old, dusty alfalfa to make room for new feed, a floorboard pops loose.
Beneath it, hidden in the dirt, they find a small black box latched with a bent paperclip.
Inside are 3 syringes filled with cloudy liquid, condoms, a jar of white powder, and joints.
A hidden stash of hard drugs and sex contraband right in the middle of their sanctuary.
Wait, if they are still hiding needles under the floorboards after all this profound work with the horses, did any of this actually matter? Is this just a story of failure?
It's easy to look at that black box and feel defeated. But the discovery of those syringes doesn't negate the healing that occurred.
No,
rather, it highlights the overwhelming gravity of addiction. The ranch is a crucible. The connection with the horses offers these residents moments of pure clarity and emotional honesty they've never experienced before.
But a few months of equine connection doesn't magically erase a lifetime of severe chemical dependency and trauma.
Healing here is a crooked line. The disease is incredibly resilient, but the moments of human and animal connection were real, and they planted seeds that weren't there before.
The journey is messy. And as we wrap this up, it's vital to point out that Ginger herself is, as the title suggests, half broke. She isn't this flawless, detached savior looking down from a pedestal at the inmates.
She is healing right alongside them. She reveals that she was effectively mute until she was 6 years old, spending her childhood hiding from her chaotic, unpredictable family under a living room coffee table.
She carries her own heavy guilt, too. As a young trainer, she was pressured by a famous cowboy to ride a terrified young filly named Terry before the horse was mentally ready.
The horse panicked, crashed violently into a wall, and severely injured its leg.
And Ginger carries that failure with her every single day. She literally carries a braided piece of flaxen mane from her own deceased horse, Domek, tied to her saddle for strength.
She needs the grounding presence of the horses just as much as Randy, Tony, or Sarah do.
So think about your own day-to-day life. We might not be residents at a remote prison ranch, but we all put on our own version of prison armor when we walk into a tense office meeting, or a difficult family gathering, or a strained relationship.
We are constantly broadcasting our internal state to the people around us, whether we realize we are doing it or not.
So what does this all mean for us? We've talked a lot about how horses provide instant, undeniable feedback to the armor we wear. But out here, in the modern human world, we don't have a 1,000-pound prey animal standing in our living room calling our bluff.
Which leaves us with a fascinating and somewhat unsettling final thought. Modern human society is built entirely on emotional camouflage.
Yeah, we lack those immediate physical feedback loops.
You can fake your confidence in a boardroom, you can bury your trauma behind a sarcastic joke, and society will often reward you for it.
We are allowed to lie to ourselves and everyone else about our internal pain for decades without any immediate consequence.
But the body keeps the score. Because we don't have that visceral mirror forcing us to confront our hidden grief today, we often swallow it until our own bodies or our minds finally break down under the weight years later.
It makes you wonder, if you don't have a horse to force you to drop the armor, are you brave enough to take it off yourself before the weight of it crushes you?